Hey everyone, today I have a video that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. The title of this video is Why Men Are Struggling So Much These Days. Um, Maybe it's something you've dealt with personally if you're a guy probably around the age of, I don't know, 16 to maybe 70. Nowadays it's obviously a little bit different. Generational aspects play a big role, but I want to get into why men are maybe struggling more than they have in the past. So let's talk about it. Reason number one, and I'm going to quote a few facts here as well. But the first fact I want to quote is men are falling behind in school. So women earn nearly 60% of college degrees in the U.S., which is actually a reversal from a few generations ago. So, back in the day, it was mostly men that were getting educated, and now it is slightly, more than half are now women. Guys are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD, suspended from school, and have lower scores in reading and writing. Now, there's many reasons for this. From I think a very basic biological standpoint, women are more detail oriented, while men are more process oriented. So we see a goal and we want to just achieve that goal as a man. Now women are more like they might see a goal and then they break everything down to achieve that goal. And I think in the school, like in learning, I think it favors women just a little bit more. It's not that they're necessarily any smarter than men, but I think they just do better in school because they have a process down. They're more biologically driven to have a process to help them learn. When it comes to school and education in general, that's kind of a whole nother topic or a whole nother video, but men are doing worse in school. And I think some of these next couple topics I'm going to bring up are to blame. Next one I want to bring up is men in general, but also everybody is having a mental health crisis. Men are a lot less likely to seek help. And believe it or not, men make up almost 80% of all suicides in the Western world. And a lot of that can be due to many different factors. Number one is probably loneliness, right? We live in a world where we are more disconnected than ever, while we seemingly are more connected than ever, right? Our phones and social media don't tell the whole story about life. And I think we get caught up about this person or that person looks like they're doing well, or this influencer looks like they're doing well. But in a way, they're probably not doing any better than you or I. And we see these lives that other people live, and we want those. And we may question why exactly is our life not where it is. And it's not only super damaging, but it can lead to a lot of hurtful thoughts. And self-isolation is something that has never helped anyone. And I think we're doing that more than ever in today's society. Next one I want to talk about is kind of an identity crisis. Men are going through an identity crisis right now because since the beginning of time, the bare minimum two requirements for men were to provide and protect. And at least in the Western world, protection is not near as important, right? And this is in regards to protecting women or your family. Protection isn't nearly as important, right? We live in a very civilized society where, people aren't necessarily out there to get you as much as they used to. So back in the day, of course, women probably should be protected by men. Nowadays, while there are still some very sketchy places that you can go, or situations where having a guy with you, if you're a woman, is a good idea, it's not as important. And then the second thing I want to talk about with, in regards to protection is, of course, providing. Men, since the beginning of time, have always been mostly the sole providers, right? And in today's economy, it's very hard for a man to be a sole provider. You can have a really good job and not even be able to afford a home, let alone take care of a family and a spouse. And those two things, when you take those away from men, you're left with something different. And you're left with men, I think, with a void that can't be fulfilled the way it used to be, how we're biologically driven. And I think that's really impactful. We also have a lot of men who, the ones who are getting educated, are getting what you consider to be a white collar job. White collar jobs are not necessarily manly jobs, right? Like, you sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, you click buttons on a computer, and it's relatively mundane. You don't get to see the fruits of your labor. And women, for example, can do those same white collar jobs, sometimes mostly even better than men. So men go to work and they see other women doing better, maybe even making more money, and they're not even to be able to provide for their family, when all they've been taught growing up was you need to get educated so you can get a good job. And now that they have a good job, they're not even able to provide the way that they thought they would be able to. So I think that's one of the biggest points to make, is why men are just feeling so lost in this current age. Next, I want to talk about specifically digital, social media, this overconsumption of just technology and electronics. We are more online than we ever have, and it gives us entertainment, but it can also create numbness and disconnection. There's so many things that men struggle with when it comes to either just, you can say, even is something as small as a social media addiction to anything as large as maybe drugs or even a porn addiction. It really hinders relationships. And now that more and more people are not getting into relationships and having kids later in life, I see a lot of men who really struggle in their 20s to kind of find a purpose. They don't find purpose in their job. They're not finding purpose in a family or even in a relationship. So where does that purpose come from? And I think a lot of men are turning towards things that society tells them, meaning drugs, pornography, social media, just things that fill or try to fill a void that is left from not feeling like your biological needs, right? And so with that all being said, if men are struggling also, as you probably know, men are not likely to speak up and talk. Men don't talk to other men about their problems, and also society doesn't really want us to either. When it comes to talking about your problems, society and even women, I know not all women do this, and they don't mean it to coming out in a bad way, but you're just told to kind of just be a man, right? You just kind of grind through your problems and everything will be okay. You just kind of have to deal with it, right? Women, on the other hand, usually love to talk about their problems and get them off their chest. Like, they have friends and family who are very open to hearing about their problems, and also it's a little bit more normal for women to share their problems. And as somebody who's dealt with things in my life, just getting them off your chest is so helpful. Talking to somebody in your life is such a helpful thing to clear your head and kind of regroup and refocus. If you keep things inside of you, they will only get worse. Time can heal many wounds, but if nothing gets out, if you don't ever express how you truly feel, you will almost internally combust. And I think a lot of men do currently. So I want to end this video on kind of what we can do in the future, what men can do to find purpose. And a couple things ultimately is, number one, we need to have purpose as men. So maybe there's a shift in how we find purpose. If your job, if your 40 hours a week isn't giving you purpose, maybe it's time to instead trying to chase money, which won't even necessarily be there, because even with a good job, you're still not really making that much money. Maybe we look for purpose in a different job. Finding something that is meaningful to you and worrying about money later, because whether or not you technically have a good job or an okay job or whatever society deems as a good job, you're still probably falling behind financially. So why not find a job that you enjoy, and hopefully the money will follow later. Next up, we need to be better role models for other men, right? Society is telling us to gamble, drink, smoke, do drugs. And while these things are maybe fun for a little bit, maybe in your early 20s, I feel like, at least when I got into my later 20s, I realized that these things were not helping me get to the next goal that I was shooting for in my life. And other men and culture and social media will kind of tell you that, oh, it's okay to drink, smoke, gamble, do all these things because it's fun. It's what guys do, right? And while I'm not necessarily a hater of all of that, I do know, and I think some of you, and if not most of you, will agree that those things are heavily pushed on young men, and they are not good for young men to be doing. And worst of all, if you have an addictive personality, doing those things can push you into an addiction that will be brutally difficult to get out of, and could alter your life for potentially the rest of your life, if not for a long time. So how can we build a better system? How can we build a better culture? I think we got to be there for one another. As men, I think it's more important that we ask each other how we're doing and actually give a response back, right? So often we ask, hey, what's up? And people say, oh, good, not much. And I think deep down, we know that there is something going on. Other than that, find your purpose, create a goal, find something that you want to achieve. It's not going to be found from these alpha male social media influencers. Acting like that will only get you more and more isolated from society, especially how they treat women is not appropriate either. So we need to look inward. We need more purpose. And I think that will help men kind of get out of this hole that we're currently in. And hopefully we can change the way society views us and, be a better role model to the younger generation as well. So let me know if you think I forgot anything. This video could have probably been an hour, 2 hours long. Tried to condense everything down a little bit, but let me know what you think in the comments, or let me know if there's anything else you're struggling with currently in your life. So no matter what age, if you're a younger man, older man, maybe around my age in the later 20s, let me know what's going on in your life and kind of what you think. More videos to come. Peace.